Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the WIT podcast. It's been a minute since you've had somebody who's been featured on our podcast. That's not a South by Southwest contestant, because that was a big part of our podcast for a while now. I'm bringing you somebody brand new to our community, brand new to me. And this is my first time chatting with her. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to her right away and let her introduce herself. Go for it.
Hi everyone, so I'm Emma, I'm 18 and I'm from Melbourne, Australia.
And how old are you? Oh, yeah, 18 years old. I was going to ask you, how old were you when you started this business that we're going to talk about today?
Yes, so at the beginning I was 14 when I started my Instagram account, which is my business. But it wasn't a business at the beginning, it was just for fun. But I was 14, so in the 10th grade.
So that's a very normal place to start. It's kind of how I started my business, and other businesses that I've had is just something that interests me. And then I go explore it and try it out a little bit and then see what happens. And I think a lot of young people that listen to this podcast will relate to that, especially something like starting an Instagram account and then eventually it turning into something. So let's tell them, what's the name of your Instagram account?
So it's called Power Through Plants. Because I initially started with just sharing my healthy recipes, and it has turned into a lot more, which I'm sure we'll touch on, my personal struggles and things like that. But that's what it's called. And
And so there's a lot of focus on fueling your body in healthy ways. Is that something that always came natural to you? Is that something that you're taking people on your journey of maybe going from maybe not fueling yourself with such healthy foods to now doing that? Tell us a little bit about the journey of the Instagram account and your own journey.
So originally I started the Instagram account. It was kind of for two reasons, but one of the reasons was I wasn't in a very good place with my health. I was quite sick as a kid, and so my mum kind of raised us to eat very healthy, and then I found plant-based eating, and I was making all of these like raw slices and just like smoothie bowls for breakfast, and it was summer at the time, so I thought, why not share that? But that was my whole, I guess, motto, and even now is like showing, I guess, young girls how to eat delicious food that is healthy and not, I guess, the way a lot of Australian kids are raised to eat a lot of packaged food. And
So you didn't grow up eating the packaged food? That wasn't part of your story?
No, I was actually the kid that always came to school with just this lunchbox with like, the bread was like fully brown, like rye sourdough bread, and I never had any of the packaged food. But I remember in class, like when I was really young, like 6 years old, and all the kids would have like the chip packets in school and the gummy worms, and that was the total opposite in our household. My mum raised us very differently.
Did you get made fun of for those lunches?
I definitely did. And that is something I think I shared about a few times about, I did have my lunchbox in high school, and then kids would make comments, and that was something that did happen to me.
That would happen. I remember when I was a teacher, I would spend, I think, a couple, maybe 2 to 3 times during the week, go eat lunch with the kids. It's a great way. If you're a teacher and you're listening, it's a great way to get a real sense of the pulse of what's going on outside of the classroom. And I had this one amazing kiddo, and she was French, and she would have, I thought, the most amazing lunches, because the way the French eat is how I, enjoy that kind of diet. But she would get made fun of because she would have like a hard-boiled egg, and then she'd have a piece of cheese, or then a piece of bread, or maybe just a little piece of meat. Like it was just a very clean, simple meal with no junk food, no chips, nothing like that. And so it was just interesting. I noticed a lot of that when I was a teacher, and even some of my friends, like even some of my Indian kids, their food just smelled different and looked different, and the kids would tease them. And I one day decided we would just host an Indian feast in my classroom, so we could all just understand like more about the foods. Because I think sometimes with kids, they make fun of things because they don't know it, and it's different. So they probably saw your lunchbox and thought, oh, that's different, not even realizing that's probably like tastes a lot better than what they had. So it sounds like it got passed down to you, this kind of living and how you fuel yourself, from your mother. And so then maybe you were saying, okay, I want to teach other people how to do this as well, and see if there's an interest. And was there an interest right away?
So on my Instagram, there was, and I think that was the time where I feel like now Instagram is so saturated, especially with food content. But at the time, there wasn't many like young girls at all sharing what they would eat. And I guess, yeah, I would literally just post my smoothie bowls and how I made them and my slices. And I think at the time there were a lot of like older women that were making like had cooking blogs and making all of these amazing cakes and things, but there wasn't really that younger generation, which that there now is. But yeah, so I did, and I did get so many messages at the time from girls that were like, "Oh, I made your slice and I took it to school," and so that was really cool. And yeah.
Okay, you're saying slice. You're saying, what is a slice?
Oh, so a slice is like a you have like a base, like a maybe like a cookie base, and then you have like a middle layer, like for example, like raspberries and chocolate on top. It's very common in Australia, and you like cut it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I hear slice, I think a New York piece of pizza. So
Oh no.
and I thought I'm not going to be the only person listening to this that's going to have that question. So, okay, we had a little clarification on slice so that we all learned something new. We all learned something new there. Okay, and then your smoothie bowls, those like the acai type bowls and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So those were the two things that you started with, just showing people how to make those things. Did you have any pushback in the beginning? Any haters in the beginning? Anybody giving you a hard time?
No, I didn't. And at the time, that was kind of so relieving to me because when I started the account, I blocked everyone from my school because I just knew that it was going to, I would just get made fun of, and they're all still blocked to this day. But and that was something I just personally felt like I had to set that boundary for myself, and really, I'm so glad I did that. But I think it almost kind of came full circle, and it was really healing for me because I never got any hate online, and I actually got the opposite. I would share a photo of my lunchbox, and people would be like, "Wow, that looks so good! Like you've inspired me to eat healthy at school." Whereas in school, I was obviously getting a lot of harassment for it. So yeah, it was kind of interesting how that ended up working out, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I kept going was because online I didn't get any hate. And even to this day, like I'll get the odd comment, someone will say something like, "Oh, that's not even healthy," or like just trolls. But I've never actually had any hate, I guess, because I've always tried to come from a place of just authenticity and just sharing what I do without being pushy or commenting on what other people do. And yeah, it's really positive, I think.
Let's stay here for a little bit because this is a little different, right? Because a lot of times the young people that I have on the show are talking about how they are getting haters online and they're getting some negative comments. And you're right, from people from their school, or not getting supported from people at their school. And you're saying that you kind of knew to set that strong boundary, that almost that wall up so that couldn't. How did you know to do that? What was the catalyst for that?
I think the catalyst, I think, was when the second I started the account, although it was for me to share my recipes, I kind of felt like this is just my own thing. Like at the start, it was just fun. And I thought, this is the only thing that you guys can't take away from me. So, and I just knew every day walking into school, the comments I would get and the environment and just absolute nasty kids. And it was just almost came naturally to me. And I guess maybe it was even fear. I was like, I want to block them out of fear. And then over time, I would just block even more people because I just was like, this is my thing and nobody's going to like ruin that for me. And today, like if someone would find out, which I'm sure they wouldn't, like I'm no longer at school, but let's say someone from my school would find it, I think I wouldn't really care. But yeah, back then I was like, this is my thing. And yeah, you're not
I
going to ruin
love
it for
that.
me.
I love that. I think that's so healthy. I think that's some great emotional intelligence, some understanding how to take care of yourself, set a boundary, be kind to yourself first, and protect the spaces that are yours. I mean, really, your Instagram account is a virtual home, and you can decide who comes into that home and who doesn't. And if any of you are listening that have hesitated blocking somebody because you think there might be negative repercussions from that, take care of yourself first, and then let things just go how they go. Okay, so tell me about some things that you've done that you're really proud about in your business.
Yeah, so I guess it's only becoming kind of my business now where I'm thinking of releasing an ebook and maybe starting my own podcast and like really working on the YouTube aspect. But I think the one thing I'm proud of that is not something that I guess made me money or anything like that is just always staying authentic. And I actually saw a quote the other day, and it was like, you need to be, I guess, what some people call almost cringy, just share your struggles. And I think that's the one thing I'm proud of is like the whole time since the age of 14 to now, I've never been like, oh, I'm not going to share that because that's kind of embarrassing or I don't know what people will think. I always would share my struggles, even if it was kind of hard for me or it was personal. I was like, oh, I don't know if I should share this. And I think that's a key part of my business and my like social media identity now is I've always shared my struggles and been really open about them. And I think if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have the trust I have with my audience today. So I think that's one thing I'm really proud of, and just continuing to work on it, even when there were times where I had so much school and I just wasn't feeling up to it in my personal life. I continued to work on it. I continued to create recipes, even though me creating recipes, I wasn't getting paid for that. It was so much, it was just me investing my time into it. So those are probably the two main things: staying authentic and just continuing to work at it. Yeah.
It's interesting. I feel like, gosh, being authentic is so layered to me right now. I feel like there's just people that are like saying they're authentic, but they're like not being authentic. And authenticity was really, I think I gave a TEDx talk. God, I mean, it's been a while ago. It was called authentic self-expression. And it was like before like being authentic was so trendy. And so now I kind of cringe at the title. Like I kind of feel like, because it's like so many people are saying like, this is how you're authentic. Like this is how to be authentic, which is like really weird to me. And I'm just not quite sure where that lands for me now. But what about for you? Like, what does being authentic mean to you and to the person listening who maybe this is the first time meeting you? What kinds of things do you feel like that you're sharing on your page that when you say you're talking about your struggles in a very authentic way, can you give them some examples of that?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was, and I do know exactly what you mean because I see so many, I guess, like big influencers. They're like, oh, I'm keeping it so real and raw. And I look at their page and it's not real and raw at all. It's like, what do you mean? And for me, it was always like, I would share actual stories of things that happened to me at school, things that kids would say to me, and I would share what I had learned from that. And I always use very, I guess, kind of language that maybe some people would not want to hear. For example, like when I would talk about how I'd seen kids do drugs in class next to me and just what kind of an environment I'd been exposed to that. I always, although I was hesitant about being so blunt and honest, that is what I did. And that is what authenticity is to me, is just telling my own story. So not saying that you're authentic because, you slept in and you missed your workout or something, just actually telling stories about what happened to you. And that way people can relate to it and, it's real. Yeah, it's a real experience.
Yeah, that's such a great example. Like, I'm just keeping it real. Like, this is
Yeah.
me oversleeping, or this is me. I mean, I just think like that does not feel real to me. Like, that's not,
Yeah.
and maybe it is real too. And then also, like, I'm a different generation, right? So people that just take pictures of themselves crying and posting them, or like getting on and crying, like that feels, I guess that could be very authentic for somebody. And then other times I feel like that's also somebody trying to manipulate my emotions by doing that. It's a very interesting thing. And I think for all of you listening, when something feels authentic to you, when you land on a page and you start scrolling, and they could say that they're authentic all they want, but trust your gut, trust your experience of being in someone's space and whether that's authentic to you, for you. So I do want to tell people that, like, just because someone's saying that they're being authentic, or go explore, go listen, go see. And also, just because somebody else is sharing a lot of things about their personal life, that may not be authentic for you. That's what I want young people to realize. Like, it's okay if you keep some things private. I keep a lot of my life private because that's authentic for me. It'd be inauthentic for me to start sharing certain parts of my life publicly, because that would just not even be real for me.
Yeah.
I would be trying to be something that I'm not, and looking around going, well, that person gets a lot more likes and follows if they share about their husband or their boyfriend or this. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that publicly. Like that's
Yeah.
super private to me. But that's honest for me. So I want everyone to kind of find their own thing. Was it natural for you to kind of find what was authentic for you? Did you ever moments where you feel like you did something that you were like, oh, I don't think I'm going to do that again? Like, how did you kind of test your waters and test your limits and boundaries?
Yeah, so I think the first time I shared something was just like a story of something that happened to me at school, like something someone had said. I think about like my lunch being like gross. And I think I got a lot of response from people. It wasn't like, oh, you can kind of tell the difference between comments that are like supportive and then comments that are actually they really have connected to you. And I think the first time that happened when I was 14, I made a post or something. I could sense that people felt connected and they felt heard by me saying that. So yeah, that's kind of how I tested the waters. And I don't have anything that I guess would regret, but yeah, just always keeping it, making sure that it's actual stories that have happened to me and not, yeah, like you said, this superficial, kind of things like that. So yeah, I how I test the waters is I kind of just always I just go for it and just, but it's always something that actually for me it was sort of like I didn't have anyone to talk to about my struggles. Like I didn't have any friends to be like, this has really hurt me. So I would post it on Instagram. It would just, yeah, again, just stories, just honest connection. And yeah.
So how did it go from just being not just, but being focused on recipes to then sharing about your journey as a high schooler dealing with maybe some bullying and things and struggles socially at school?
Yeah, so it kind of ran parallel, but I think so I had my recipes and then I would have like these stories, and sometimes it would be like a recipe and the caption would be a story of something that happened to me. And then I just honestly kept doing that, and my account kind of grew a little bit here and a little bit there. And then when Reels came out is when I kind of got onto Reels, and I wasn't really sure about them. But then in my last week of high school, I shared a reel, and the reel ended up getting 3 million views. And it was a reel, like a really personal reel of I had been made fun of because I had been offered to go to a party and do drugs, and I was like, absolutely no way. And I had been really, that was a really hard time for me. And in my last week of school, went viral, got 3 million views. And I think because I already had all of these other posts that about my experiences and my recipes and just the whole, I guess, feed of my life, people jumped onto that, and that reel really just gave me like a microphone for my platform. But yeah.
So I haven't seen that reel, and but were you touching on being asked and then choosing not to go to that and then being made fun of for not going?
Yes, it was it was this trend to show something, like the trend was that you use this audio and you show what you do instead of something. Like so I had posted this comment that someone had said to me, and then the reel was just like videos of me making recipes, and then there was a long caption to it. Yeah.
So I wanted to get that clarification for those that maybe haven't seen it either. And it sounds like that maybe it might have landed with some people for different reasons. I bet there was probably some trolls on the comments on that as well. I would
Yeah.
think that probably wasn't all
Yeah.
super positive, but I think it's really great for young people, especially other young women, to see alternatives to navigating high school and social life. And it sounds like that's kind of what that reel was doing, was saying like, you're not doing maybe the typical thing that a high schooler is doing. And that's okay. Am I kind of capturing that right? That's probably, I mean, I think a lot of people listening to this are navigating that part of their life as well, like balancing that. Did that come easy for you to be able to say no to those kinds of things?
It did. It was very easy for me to say no because I was very focused on my health. And so at the basis, I was like, no way am I ever going to do that. But it was more difficult that I guess people really cared that I wasn't doing that. And they made it their mission to, I guess, try to, shove it down my throat and make it very public that I should be doing that, or that I was some loser for not doing it. That was the biggest comment, I think. Yeah, loser. And then, I never ever struggled with saying no. That was just like an internal boundary that I set myself, and that was not like a value of mine that I always had, but it was difficult. And then you kind of don't have any friends because, especially the school I went to, everyone was doing it, and I was just like this little fish in this, and I was lost in that kind of environment. But no, I never struggled with saying no. And I think, if I guess to anyone listening to this, you just have to literally get a piece of paper and write down values that you are not willing to give up, and have those set. And I think that makes it so much easier to navigate high school. Yeah.
Well, but I'm going to tell you, it also helps it make it really easier to navigate adult life too, because hearing you, and I just was not even expecting to have this story of my life like pop up as you were talking, or even come up on this podcast. But when I worked in TV and film, one of the last films that I did, which went on to be a very popular film, I was not doing some of the things that people were doing on that set for entertainment. And I might dive into that in a different podcast another time, but there were some extracurricular activities, I guess you could say, that people were taking part in that were very high up on that movie. And it was really clear to me that that was a no, like that was not something that I was interested in doing and participating in. And not even that I wasn't confused. It was a very easy no for me. But similarly to what you said, what was the struggle is just the repercussions of the no from these people. And they started they gave me a nickname on this set that I will not say on this show. And they would call me that name, and I realized, this is when I was in my 20s. And so this is, adults doing this to other adults. And I think it's just a pattern of human behavior when somebody chooses to do something. And sometimes I think it's because people are often envious that they don't have they're not able to say no as clearly, or they just don't. You are kind of shining a light on something that maybe they're like, do not want a light shined on. And I wasn't doing it for that. I wasn't saying no because I was trying to, in a self-righteous way, or I'm so much better than you are. I just was not, that was a no for me. And it sounds like that's similar to you. You weren't doing it to then go off and be like, I'm so much better than all of you because I'm doing this. It was just not your value system. So people take that pen to paper like she recommended and get clear, because I'm so grateful I've been clear on my values, because I'm much older than everybody that really listens to this podcast. And those values help me say yes and no still to this day. And I still get pushback. It's crazy that you can be an adult and it can still feel like high school.
Yeah.
So let's talk about maybe like the direction, because it sounds like it starts as this place to share these recipes, to share the smoothie bowls and the slice inspiration. And then it becomes, I'm telling people, bringing people into your journey, into your life a little bit more. And here you have a pretty significant following on Instagram. Although I've talked to people that all think they have a significant following and they're like, oh no, I wish I had this much more. Do you care about that? Or where are you at with your follower number?
I think it definitely was a shock to me, because when like I said, that reel went viral, I went from maybe 4,000 followers, and I'd had that account for 3 years, all of a sudden to overnight, I was like, had my phone with my mom, and it just went all the way up to 20,000 followers. So it was initially, it is something that I'd worked on for so long. I was like, wow, this is so cool. But I guess now, even now that I'm like finished with high school, and I still talk a lot about my struggles in that place, but now I'm kind of like, how do I continue to share how people can change their lives, and how they can, take charge of their own lives, and how can I continue to share my struggles? So it's not really about followers to me. It's about just staying, like, being a true person still, and maybe, creating space that will continue to help people. Because, I do see so many people that have, hundreds of thousands of followers, and I go into their grid and it's like really pretty and everything like that, but there's no connection, and I don't know who you are, and I don't know, like, how can you help me by sharing your struggle? So although followers, it is, I guess, an added benefit, because you've worked so hard and you want you want a bigger audience to share your work. It's more about, for me, always just, how do I actually connect to another human being? Yeah.
because you're going through a transition in your own life, right? I mean, talking about high school is not really going to be a thing that you want to keep talking about anymore, because you're
Mm.
going to be moving on into your next chapter of your life. And I believe that you have an intention of traveling around Australia and going on those adventures. So there's going to be, I can tell, like another iteration of content and maybe what you're talking about. But I think that's something that will probably stay the same, which is something that I know you and I both share, is this idea of not living with a victim mindset. That's
Mhm.
something obviously I really care about. And there's plenty of YouTube videos of me talking about it. You care about it. It's on your Instagram feed. I've seen it. Can you tell me a little bit more and tell us a little bit more about when you kind of got that language of, I do not want to live with a victim mindset, or I do not want to be a victim, and then why you feel it's important to share that with people in your online community?
Yeah. So I guess where that all started was in the first day of year 10. So I had, I guess, seventh, eighth, and ninth grade were just absolutely terrible. And I was just in this place with these toxic kids, and I didn't know how to get out. And I every day was getting like so much harder for me. And I told myself on over the summer break, like, I'm going to come back and these kids are going to treat me with respect, and we're all going to be friends, and it's going to be a really good time. And I came back on the first day of year 10, and I remember I walked out and they started to laugh like they always did when I would come. And that moment I was like, I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. And I don't want this in my life anymore. And so I walked to the other end of the school, and I just sat there by myself with my like lunch, and I just sat there like every lunch by myself. And that's actually also the exact time when I started my Instagram. And that's when I decided I just didn't want to feel sorry for myself anymore, because it wasn't getting me anywhere. And so that is something I really shared about. And I, even now, like, although I'm no longer in high school, I still will continue to share about that, because, for example, yeah, like you said, I do want to travel Australia, but I don't come from a family that will just be like, oh, here's some money, you can do whatever you want. I have to work for that. And I think that's something very common that a lot of kids in Australia face, is like, not everyone has a lot of money. So, but it's about like sharing that I'm making my own money and I can make that dream possible if I work for it. And yeah, I just think it's so important to share, because one thing that I mainly learned in high school was like, nobody is going to come to help you, even though, I would, like I said, would be on the train with these kids that went through these paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to these private schools. And, here we were just in this really poor, low socioeconomic school. It didn't make them, I guess, more advantaged in life, because you can be rich and have all this money, but you can still sit around and do nothing. So I guess that it's just really important to have that mentality that you are in charge of your life. And yeah, that's why I continue to share about it. But yeah.
I mean, I love to hear that. And I love it because you were at a crossroads in that moment. And when there's going
Yeah.
to be there's these times in our lives that we don't even, sometimes like we don't even realize that those are going to be like the pivotal moments of our life. And that
Mm.
moment when you had so much, I think, hope that it was going to be different this time,
Mm.
at school, and then you show up and it wasn't different. And gosh, think about how many different reactions you could have had in that moment.
Mm.
And I think there's going to be more moments in your life like that, where you're going to have to make a choice, or you get to make a choice of how you're going to respond. But since one of your core values is to not be a victim, that's going to be so great for you in your life, because then no matter what the circumstances, if your default is that don't be the victim, you're in charge of your own life, you're one choice away from getting your power back. That's going to just save you so much in life. Some people just like sit around pissed that no one's there rescuing them, or they blame people
Mm.
for their circumstances versus taking ownership. So whether you like it or not, that you had to go through all of that, you have a tool that's going to just be such a gift for you that some people don't learn
Mm.
until they're my age or older. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. It's fun to hear that a positive side of social media, right? Because it turns out social media kind of saved you during that time, building your own community online. Looks like you built friendships that way. Does that seem true?
Yeah, definitely. And even, I guess, now I think you interviewed Haley, like from the Sunshine Signal. And she connected with me, and it's so funny because in high school I never had any friends, and people would be like, oh, you don't go to parties, like you're never going to get friends, you're not social, you're antisocial. And it was like, and for a while I did think like, oh, like is social media this community, is it, do I have friends? And now like going on people's podcasts and just even just some people will just say like, hey, do you want to jump on a Zoom meeting and just like have a chat? And it's like I actually do have so many connections. And now, I guess when everything settles down with travel, like people will travel and I will be able to meet friends that I made in different countries. And yeah, so it's been really cool. And I do definitely believe that it helped me, and it's been like just so cool to meet new people and people that are actually like-minded, like especially in school, these kids would have so many friends, but it's like, do you even like connect with them on a like a deep level? And in the end I was like, I'm so glad I don't have friends here, because it would be fake anyway, because there's nothing we have in common. So yeah.
Well, it's, if people are willing to do the exercise that you recommended, putting pen to paper to figure out their values. I mean, my 3 core values are faith, family, freedom. Those are my 3 core values and 3 buckets. And all my life decisions are based around those. When you get clear on your values, it makes the yeses and the nos easier. And it also helps you attract like-minded people.
Yeah.
And that's the really beautiful thing is the more you live into your values, the more you find other people who are living into those values. And then it makes sense that you would meet. And what's really cool is like-minded values can mean that you can meet people from all different stages of life, ages, and careers. And that makes life really fun. I think it's so important to have friendships of different age groups. And some of my dearest from my neighbor in New York City, she's late 80s, early 90s. And we have so much fun together and so much fun chatting, and because our values align. So it makes sense that we're just in different, obviously, chapters of our life. So I really hope that the listener does explore that. And maybe we'll have a chat, a podcast on how to identify your core values, because that might be really helpful to people. As we come to the close of this podcast, I want to touch on a few things with you so we can give our listener some tangible tips. Okay. So I want you to take a moment to think about maybe like the top 2 things you would say to somebody who is interested in exploring healthy. I don't even want to say healthy eating. It just feels like that can be triggering to people. So I really think about like fueling your body with like foods that are good fuel. And if someone's kind of like, I didn't grow up like you did, I didn't have access to those things, or I wasn't taught that in the home, what are some easy ways to get into that? And also to this person who's thinking about launching an Instagram account, what would you say to them? So pick which one you want to address first.
Okay, so I think I'll address the second one first, about how to start an Instagram. I think the main thing, especially because social media is so saturated these days, is no matter what you do, say you want to start a clothing brand, I just think it's so important to share who you are alongside of that, not only your struggles, but even just as simple as when you go on Instagram stories, to actually show your face so that people can connect that it's another human being on the other side. And and then on top of that, if you share, struggles in your life, no matter what, I guess, age you are, it's so, people relate to it so much, and you don't really notice it until one day you get a huge, like really long DM, and someone will just share their entire like heart with you and just fully say how much you've helped them. And I think that's the main thing, especially because more and more people are using Instagram to sell, and that is totally fine, because people have to make money and they have businesses that they want to share. But that's the core thing. If you start it, I think definitely write down like, what is my passion, and how can I connect with people, or like what are my struggles and how can I share them that will help people. I think that's the main thing. Just, and have that honestly like alongside if you have a business, for example, like run it parallel, so people aren't just like, oh, that's the girl who sells t-shirts, that they're like, that's the girl who struggled with this and this. And it can literally be anything. So that would be my advice for people wanting to start an Instagram. And then for the food, I would say it is very difficult. And I guess, like you said, healthy eating, it can be quite triggering and it means so many different things. I would say probably just use the internet because there are so many wonderful bloggers and recipe creators that are sharing recipes, and just find food that you actually enjoy. And just, I guess, I like to have the motto, like, if it's fresh, it's good for you. So like, you might not know what healthy means, or you might not want to label food in that way, but if you see like a salad or like fresh fruit and dishes with just fresh ingredients, I think that's a very good place to start.
So maybe encouraging our listener to try to incorporate one fresh food into your daily intake. So that can be, that's a piece of fruit or a vegetable, or maybe a local protein of some kind, like just something that feels like it's I not processed. So maybe one fresh food every day. That's a kind of a good way to start that. And then just see how your body feels when you do that. I think that's also really important. You can always just tune into your body. And I would love for our young people to just incorporate movement every day. So whether that's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of movement of your body every day, that's so good for you, especially as an entrepreneur, because we can be just so many of us can just sit down to work and then the time just disappears. And that's good. That's good because it means that we really love what we do. And it's also really important to take care of our mind, body, and soul. So moving, how do you incorporate movement into your daily life?
Yeah, so guess that kind of ties into what you said. Like, for me, I used to just run all the time, and I loved running, but then it didn't really feel right for me anymore. I didn't feel that good. So I do run a lot now, but I also go swimming, or I just go on walks. And I also, my mom and I have started going to a like women's only gym. So with exercise, I think just find something that you actually enjoy. Like, for a time, at the start of this year, I just loved swimming and I wanted to swim every week. So that's what I did. But then if it doesn't get fun anymore, just stop doing it and find something else. So yeah, with exercise, I think, like you said, just get out and move every day, but make sure that you enjoy it. So that, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's so important that we move because we can, not because we have to. We move because we can, because what a gift to be able to move. Okay. And then the tip on the Instagram, friends, do what feels comfortable for you. I know we've got a couple people in our community who sometimes show their face, sometimes don't, because they're dealing with that. Even at home, maybe your parents aren't super comfortable with you showing yourself online yet. That's okay. There's other ways that you can let people in and they can relate to you. Because also, if you just think about, if maybe you're not showing your face, there's probably other kids that aren't showing their face, and maybe there's ways to connect for them. So there's always a place for you. It's just about being authentic and doing what feels good and right for you. So how can we support you? What are some ways that our community can show up for you and support the work that you're doing?
Well, that's so nice of you. I guess, yeah, my Instagram is my main platform. It's called Power Through Plants. And I think it'll probably be on your Instagram if you share this. But yeah, that's like the main platform. And then from there, I do have my YouTube. And if I have a podcast, you'll definitely, not a podcast, an ebook, you'll know about it from there. But that's like my main, I guess, yeah, my like home base. Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, make sure to give her a follow on her Instagram account. Check it out. See the kind of content that she puts out there, and give her some love over there. And also check out her YouTube channel and you can subscribe so you can get her videos. They're really beautifully done. And some really, I will say, I have not yet made a recipe, but they look so good. Everything just looks so good. So I hope that people check it out. And please share this episode and reach out to her and tell her that, a takeaway that you had from that. That always means so much to people when they're podcast guests. If you listen, to let them know what resonated, because sometimes, you can be a guest on a podcast. I've been in those shoes, and you kind of wonder at the end, like, it's not even good. Like, did I share anything of value? So if you're listening and find one thing that you got from this that was inspiring or relatable, and reach out to Emma and let her know, that'd probably make her feel good too. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, on the Do It podcast. It was such a joy to meet you. To our listener, this is third time's a charm. We had some tech issues and we finally found a place where we could connect. And so that's good. So just know that even behind the scenes, we're doing WIT, doing whatever it takes to bring you inspiring guests from around the world. And wherever this finds you, I hope it finds you making it a great day. And if it's not a great day, you're just one choice away, one action away. And usually that starts with doing something kind for yourself and doing something kind for somebody else. And just doing WIT. And let's end on your motto. My motto is obviously doing WIT. What is your motto for life, Emma?
My motto for life is definitely that only you can change your life.
Well, on that note, everybody, if there's something in your life that is not going as you want it to go, well, guess what? You have the power to change it. All right, everybody, go do WIT. Bye.
Bye.